everyone, it's Gina from orchidandopal.com, and today I'm back with a pendant necklace tutorial specifically for the pendant itself. I won't be making the necklace, but I'll give you some pointers on how you can complete this. But as for the pendant, it's made up of two different components, which I will show you how to make today step by step. And all the materials came from the recent Beading School Academy Lucia's Light themed bi-monthly subscription box. I'll leave the link to the subscription right down below if you're interested in getting your hands on future packages. I highly recommend the subscription if you are into using premium quality products like Miyuki seed beads, Preciosa crystals, and the like, and you're mainly into bead weaving. But I have all the details in the unboxing videos that I've shared previously, so be sure to check those out if you haven't seen them already, including the unboxing for this particular theme and that package I have sitting there to the left. Also down below the video in the description section, I will list out everything that I'm using today, including links to these products at Beading School, because you can get your hands on these separately, of course, and in many cases in all sorts of different colors. The larger component features a 16mm Preciosa Nacre pearl cabochon, and in the smaller component, we're going to be using an 8mm Preciosa crystal Chaton. In addition, we'll be creating the bezels with some 15-0 Miyuki seed beads, 3mm Preciosa crystal bicones, 4mm sew-on crystals, and some 2mm fire polish beads. As for my beading thread today, I'll be using the 6-pound test 0.006 inch diameter Fireline, and you'll want to use probably a size 11 beading needle. We will be passing through 15-0s multiple times, so a size 11 or 12 will be easier for you to work with. We'll start by making the larger component. So to do that, if you'll be making it with me, you can go ahead and thread your beading needle with a comfortable length of beading thread, and we will jump into this tutorial. So here's a closer look at this pendant component that we'll be making. The larger one, as you can see, has the 4mm sew-on crystals all around that bezel, and there is a peek at what the back looks like and how it's secured into place. To get started, you'll need your 15-0 seed beads and those 4mm sew-on crystals, and we can jump into that first step. To begin, pick up one of your 4mm sew-on crystals, just going through one of those holes at the back in the setting, and then pick up a 15-0. And you're going to repeat that step 12 times. So just keep going until you have 12 of each alternating on your beading thread, and then you'll want to pull those down and leave yourself about a 6-inch tail. You'll be weaving that back in a little bit. Once you have that assortment strung on your thread and you've pulled that down a little bit, you can take your needle and just sew back through, say, the first few beads. I'm going to go through the sew-on, the next 15-0, the next sew-on, and the next 15-0. And we're just pulling these together into a loop just to get us started. And then I'm going to go underneath that thread bridge that we're getting to next, and I'm going to make a 1/2 hitch knot just right there to hold everything in place while we go. And then I'm going to proceed through my next sew-on crystal and the next 15-0 seed bead. Pull that tight. And here is our ring of beads and the sew-on crystals. I'm coming out of this 15-0 right here. And I've just positioned the crystals. They're all face up right now, but if yours are all sorts of different ways, it doesn't matter at this point, so don't worry about it. So we're going to pick up 3 more 15-0s. And then we're going to go down through the open hole of that next sew-on crystal. So the one that's going in the other direction. Holding that and just pulling with my needle. And we've got those 3 new seed beads in place. Now I'm coming out of the bottom of this sew-on crystal, and I'm going to pick up another 3 15-0s, You can pull those down, and I'm going to go through the very next 15-0 in this loop and pull. And we're going to keep repeating the same step until we get to the other side of this loop. So again, pick up 3 15-0s and then sew down through the open hole of that next crystal that you get to. Coming down out of this crystal and picking up another 3 15-0s. And just like we did before, we're going to sew through the very next 15-0 on this loop. And pull that tight. And just keep going. 3 more 15-0s, and this time down through the sew-on crystal. So you can see how this is creating this really interesting wavy division of seed beads in between each of these crystals. So you'll just keep doing that all the way around. And I'm also going to go ahead and weave in this tail thread to get it out of the way for the tutorial. Once you've done that and you've gotten close to this last crystal, that's where we'll meet back and continue on with the next steps. And welcome back. When you get to your last one, I'm coming out of this crystal, and then I'm going to go through the next 15-0 like we normally would, but I'm also going to go through those next 3 15-0s that we just added. And now I've brought in some of our 2mm fire polish beads, and what we're going to do, now that we're coming out of that last seed bead in that grouping there, we're going to pick up a 2mm and then pick up one more 15-0. You can slide those down, and then you're going to sew through that 15-0 that's in that last position in the next section, right before the next crystal, and pull. And we're actually going to be cinching that area together. That's what's going to form the top of our bezel and sit around the front of our cabochon. So just keep repeating this now all the way around, picking up a 2mm and a 15-0, and then sewing through that 15-0 that you get to next. 2mm, 15-0, and going through that single seed bead. And you can see how this is pulling these beads and crystals closer together at this point. And just like we did before, keep going all the way around, and then we will meet back right before the next step. All right, I have one more to go, so I'm going to pick up my 2mm and my 15-0, and then I'm going to sew through the seed bead that's right before that next fire polish and bring that all together just like that. And now what we need to do is just sew around that entire loop of beads at least once more and pull tight as you go, because this is going to be sitting around the front of the stone, like I said, and we want to make sure that that is nice and secure. Also, just make sure you don't miss any beads on your way around. So just take your time and be sure you catch all of those and strengthen up this section. Keep going and I'll meet you back in just a moment. And welcome back. So the front of your bezel should be starting to look like this, and I've gone ahead after I've tightened that inner section up and just followed my thread path to be coming out of one of these seed beads right here, and we want to have this flipped over to the back. So be coming out of a seed bead that still leaves 2 more after it, going towards the outer edge of the bezel. And we're going to start to form the back, and what we need to do now is just pick up 7 15-0s, pull those down, and then in the next section of seed beads, go through that same one, that third one from the edge, and pull those down. And just keep repeating that all the way around. So once again, pick up 7 15-0s, and then go through the next seed bead in the next grouping, the third one from the end. And pull. Give that a turn. And just keep doing this all the way around until you get to the first one that we did. Do one more here with you. There we go. So just keep going, and right before we finish this up, I will meet you back. All right, so once you have your last 7 strung on and you've gotten to that last section, you go through that same bead that you normally would, and then we're going to step up and sew through the next 4 beads that we had just put on. So I went through the 1, and then I'm going through those next 4. We're trying to get to the peak of that next seed bead section. All right, so we're almost to the point where we're going to insert our cabochon face down, but let's keep going, and we're not going to tighten this up really tight yet, but we're going to get most of our beads in place. So now we're going to pick up 2 of our 15-ohs and then find the peak of that next set of 7 seed beads and go through the center one or the 4th one. And this is going to start to cinch up. So once again, 2 15-ohs. Then in that next section, you'll go through that 4th seed bead and pull. 2 more seed beads. And going through that 4th one in the next section. And this is going to cinch up around the back of our cabochon. So keep doing this all the way around. And you should have something like this so far, and if you tighten that, it starts to bring those beads together, but we want to insert our cabochon now face down, so just press that into the center and start to slowly pull those seed beads around the back. So you can see it's starting to tighten around that area, and I've got 1 more section to go in this step, so I'm going to pick up my 2 more seed beads and go through that 4th seed bead in the next section, and then continue to proceed through that entire ring of beads again, tightening this around the back of the bezel as I go. So continue to sew around this ring of beads at least 1 more time and get this cabochon in there securely. Keep it centered and make sure you don't miss any beads as you're going around again. And once you're happy with how secure that is and how it feels, it should be looking something like this. And there's a look at the front and the sides of this bezel. So what we want to do now is follow our thread path once again. I'm going to go down through these seed beads. We want to get to the seed beads that are on the furthest area of this bezel on the outer edge. And I'm going to go through those next two, just like that. So I'm coming out of this furthest seed bead right here, and we're going to start to add on to the outside of this bezel. And I've pulled out my bicones because we're going to start using those at this point. And I'm coming out of this 15-0 right here, that furthest one out. I'm going to pick up a bicone and then two of those 15-0s. And then in that next section of seed beads, I'm going to go through that one that is furthest out once again. And we're going to do that all the way around, picking up a bicone and two seed beads, and then catching that next 15-0. So let's keep doing that all the way around the piece. And now at my last one, I am going to sew through the single seed bead and then through the next bicone, or the first one that we had added. So this is what we have so far. And we're going to do one more ring of beads around the outside of this bezel. And now what we're going to do, exiting out of this bicone, is pick up one fire polish and two more 15-0s. And then sew through the very next bicone bead. We're going to do that all the way around. So again, pick up a fire polish and two of your 15-0s. And go through the next bicone. And just keep repeating that until you get to the very last one. That's where we're going to do something a little bit different. And here, when you get to your last section, what you're going to do is you'll pick up a fire polish and a 15-0 and one more fire polish. And then you'll sew through your next bicone bead. That's going to be the location where we add that other smaller component on top of this one. And for now, this component is complete. So what we're going to do is just make a couple of half-hitch knots like I just did right there, and sew through a few more beads. And I'll make another one right here. Sewing through a few more. And I'll make one final knot. Sewing through there. And then I can trim off the excess thread. So here's our large component all done, and now what we're going to do is make that smaller component together, and then we'll connect the two. So at this point, you can gather up another piece of beading thread that's comfortable for you to work with, and thread your needle with a new piece. We'll also be working with some more seed beads, fire polish, bicones, and then this time one of those 8mm crystal chatons. And once you have everything you need, we can jump into that part of the tutorial. To begin making our smaller component, let's first string on a fire polish bead and then 4 of our seed beads. And we're going to repeat that 3 more times. So once again, a fire polish and 4 seed beads. And you'll start to pull those down, leave yourself a little tail you'll be weaving in later, and you are welcome to use a stop bead if you're more comfortable doing that. And now I'm going to sew back through all of these beads again. We want to make sure we don't miss any of those. And we're going to form these into a loop, and you'll go through that next fire polish as well to complete that loop. At this point, I'm going to make a single half hitch knot right next to that fire polish bead. And I'm going to sew through the next 4 seed beads and come out the next fire polish. Next, we want to pick up 7 of our seed beads. Then sew through the next fire polish and repeat that 3 more times, so all the way around. And I do realize this thread is kind of frayed, so it's okay for me since this is just an example, but I don't recommend using thread that's got those little weak points, which is probably due to using that with some bicone beads and taking things apart before. Alright, so I have my last 7 seed beads, and at this point we are going to go through the fire polish, and then we're going to go through the next 4 15-ohs. So we're coming out of the peak of that section. Now we'll pick up 4 15-ohs and then sew through the 4th seed bead in that next section, which is right in the middle, and repeat that 3 more times. 4 seed beads, and go through the 4th bead in that next section. We'll do that again. Catching that 4th bead. And we have 1 more to go before we finish this round. This is also cinching together, which is going to hold our stone in place. And when we get to our last one, we're going to go through that 4th seed bead, which is where we started. And pull a little bit, but not too tight, because what we're going to do now is insert our stone face down before we tighten it. And now we can give that thread a pull, and we can see that that's going to sit around our stone just like that. So at this point, let's go around that loop of beads again to tighten this up. And then something that I like to do here, which is optional, but we do have that little point that's sticking out. I'm going to add a few more beads to the back just to kind of cover that area. So I'm going to pick up a fire polish, a 15-0, and a fire polish, and I'm coming out of one of these corner or peak seed beads. I'm going to look to the one on the opposite side now and go through that. And then I'm going to pick up another fire polish and then go through that 15-0 that's in the center to kind of join those together. And I'll pick up another fire polish and then go through that seed bead on the corner, heading through that other side. And that just adds a little buffer area over that point on the back. So now what we can do is just follow our thread path to the front of the bezel. And I'm going to come out one of these fire polish beads. And just to get it out of the way for the tutorial, I am going to pop a needle on the tail thread and weave that back in, and I will be right back. All right, and now in the corners in ladder stitch, we're going to be picking up a fire polish, and we're going to go back through that same fire polish that we're coming out of. Now sew through the next 4 seed beads in fire polish, if you can get through all those at one time, and then pick up another fire polish, and then sew around the same one you're coming out of, just like we did before, and repeat that all the way around. So you're adding an extra fire polish on each corner. And we're going through the last one. We'll add one more here. There we go. And now we're going to step up and go through that new fire polish that we just added. And at this point, we're going to pick up 2 of our seed beads, a bicone, and 2 more seed beads. And then sew through the fire polish on the next corner. And repeat that 3 more times. 2 seed beads, a bicone, and 2 seed beads. Sew through the next fire polish. 2 seed beads, bicone, and 2 seed beads through the next. And 1 more to go. And then I like to just sew around that section of beads again, so I'm going to go around that to reinforce it a little bit. Then you want to be coming out one of your bicone beads. And at this point, I'm bringing in my large component again. We're going to connect these 2. We're going to use a couple of these fire polish to do that. Coming out of the bicone, I'm going to pick up a fire polish, and then I'll sew through that 15-0 that's in the center of the 2 fire polish that we had added onto that larger component. Pick up another fire polish, and then this time go through the other side of the bicone, just like that. And then we're going to go around that section again. If you can, go around it 2 more times so that it's nice and secure. And then I'm just going to continue through the beadwork on the smaller component to finish off this piece of thread. So I'm going to go under that thread bridge right there and make a 1/2 hitch knot. I'll sew through a few more beads. And I'll make another knot right there. And my thread has gotten so short, I'm just going to sew through some more beads and that will be fine. And now I'll trim off the excess thread. So now the pendant is complete, and just to share with you what I did with this pendant is I added these 2 extra little arms of seed beads off of the 2 corners of the pendant and connected those with a beaded portion using some of those 6mm pearls, some more bicones and seed beads that came in the Beading School Academy box. And then back here, I added 2 ropes of cubic right angle weave using a base of 5 beads. And if you need a refresher on how to do that or are not familiar with cubic right angle weave, I have a video that goes into more detail about that. And then basically I just sewed these 2 beaded ropes onto the lower beaded portion and everything is attached that way. So that wraps it up for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it and I so appreciate you being here. Don't forget you can check down below for the full list of materials with links to these products at Beading School, as well as the quantities you'll need. And if you're interested in checking out the Beading School Academy box, you can see the link for that below as well. If you plan to give this a try or have given this a try, I'd love to hear about it, so please feel free to leave me a comment down below. Also be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Share this tutorial with your other beading friends, and go ahead and give the video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. That's all I have for now. I will be back again real soon though, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day, and as always, happy beading!